Headaches are not just a bad day. Something is actually happening inside of your brain to make you suffer and could indicate serious illness. And so don't ignore this. Seek help. Take control of your headaches. Don't let headaches take control of you.
Welcome to the Get Back to Your Life podcast. And today we are talking about all things headaches with headache expert, Dr. Ella Akkerman, a neurologist at VSI.
Thank you for having me, Jenny.
All right, I want to set the stage here because the stats on headaches are really mind-boggling. It is the most common form of pain. It affects more than 3 billion people globally. That's 40% of the population. It is a major reason, I'm sure you're aware, cited for days missed at work, for missed days at school, and for people to go to the doctor, which is why we're coming to you. It is an enormous problem impacting so many people. Everyone's probably had one at least at some point in their life, and yet you call it an invisible illness, and often people aren't believed when they say they have one. That doesn't make sense, but why? What's happening?
Well, in general, pain is so difficult, right? Especially for people with chronic pain. 30% of population suffers from chronic pain, and all they rely on is us understanding them. And how do we understand it? How do we see it? We can't, right? We don't see chronic pain. We just observe suffering, that people are miserable, that they miss work, that they're unhappy, that they're struggling through each day, that they have interrupted sleep, that they're dragging every day. And it's just a very sad observation that these people, when you next to these people, when you watch them. And so
they often probably, that not being believed piece, because you can't see it, they go on for long periods of time often without being diagnosed, right? Like this can go on for a while. They figure out how to hide it or how to just kind of push through.
Absolutely.
When people come to you, how are they feel? Like there's a big emotional component if you have these chronically, right?
They're very self-conscious usually. They're very defensive.
They feel like there's something wrong with them, right?
They're very defensive. They feel misunderstood and ignored. And it's very easy to hurt their feelings with just the way you say things.
But of course, because they're feeling this incredible pain and people are doubting them.
Yes.
All right. So you help people when they come to you and they have them, but you have them as well, which I think gives you a really interesting perspective here. Can you just give us a little insight on what it looks like for you?
Certainly. Sometimes it may be a washed out feeling that starts a migraine. Sometimes it may be blurred vision. Sometimes it may be a little bit of nausea or a little bit of irritability, just like you start feeling overwhelmed in terms of too much stimulus coming at you. You feel like the noise is too loud or the lights are too bright. And so at that point, I know I need to do something. When I get the blurred vision, that's very tough because I wear contacts. And so sometimes I have to use rewetting drops to see and make sure my eyes are just not dry. But when the vision gets blurry, especially, I know I need to stop doing what I'm doing and start acting.
Okay, I want to walk through what headaches are and what to do about them. But I think as we're talking, this is not only for people who experience them. I don't really experience them, but I love someone who does experience them. And I think for all of us, even if you don't have them, if you know someone who does, this is really useful too, because knowing how to support it if you're a boss at work or if you're a teacher and it's your student or anything, it just feels like we need more empathy around this diagnosis, don't you think?
We have to be educated in migraines.
Yeah, whether you have them or whether you're just in the world interacting with other people who do.
Yeah, because they're so common.
Okay, so it sounds really simple, but tell me, what is a headache? We've got a brain here. Show me what's happening in the brain when your head hurts.
So it's common misunderstanding that you really should call headache a pain in the head. A headache is really anything in the face or back of the neck close to the head, or pain in the ear, or even pain in the teeth. It could still be a headache.
Wow.
Okay. And so just if you think about the word headache, it's kind of a misnomer.
It's not just up here.
It's misnomer. Okay.
Does it matter? In order for it to be a headache, does it have to be a certain severity, a certain length of time, or no, it's just any sort of pain?
Not. Any sort of pain in the head area, in the facial area, can be a headache.
Can you show me with this model of the brain, for those who are listening, we have a grapefruit-sized pink model of the brain. You can also go to YouTube so you can see this next part. But show me what's happening in the brain that causes this, would you?
So the head pain is generated by a trigeminal nerve system, and it originates in the pons, in the brain stem, but it goes all the way down into the top of the cervical spine and all the way up to the top of the brain stem, deep into the brain. And out of that area, the middle of the brain stem, called pons, there are two trigeminal nerves. They come out on each side, one to the left and one to the right. And these nerves literally go into all the blood vessels, all the membranes that cover the brain, all the sinuses. Okay?
Is it inflammation?
No, this is just
just nerves.
The nerves.
Activated.
The nerves.
Okay.
The trigeminal nerves. And their little twigs that go all over. They branch out all over. And they are the ones that sense the pain.
They're pain receptors.
And transmit the pain signal into our brain for the brain to interpret it. And so there is a feedback mechanism, back and forth, back and forth. And people who develop pathological pain or chronic pain often develop this loop of pain, of feedback that is self-propagating without any specific trigger.
Just once you've had one, you're more likely to have it again?
It just kind of
keeps going?
It's like a short circuiting, basically. And it just keeps going and going. And that's why people have chronic pain sometimes that is very difficult to control, because you have to break that short circuiting.
So when we talk about how often they're happening with chronic pain, how often is it happening? And does it have to just, in order to be chronic, it's disrupting your life in some way?
Right. So specifically in the case of migraines, right, the definition of chronic migraine is when you have 15 or more days per month with migraine days. Okay. Now, do all of them have to include headaches? No. And that's the tricky part. And that's what people need to understand, is that migraine has so many other symptoms that precede it, accompany it, or follow it, that those symptoms also count as migraine day.
So I think the different types of headaches are a little confusing if you're not super in tune with all of these terms. So let's go through them, because you're using terms like migraines versus headaches. I know there's cluster headaches, but I also know you talk about primary and secondary headaches. So let's start there. With those two categories, what's the difference between a primary and a secondary headache?
Of course. So most headaches are primary headaches, meaning they're not caused by anything underlying, like a tumor or an aneurysm or infection or something that specifically causes pain in the head.
That would be a secondary headache.
That would be a secondary
when there's
headache.
some other problem and the headache's a result.
So majority of headaches are primary, meaning they are generated by the trigeminal pain center that was irritated by some sort of environmental trigger.
They're the main problem. That's what it basically means.
Exactly. It's not because of some underlying illness.
Okay. And then within that category, that's where we have headache, migraine, cluster headaches. Those are the three main types.
The tension headaches are most common. Up to 80% of adult population can have at least one or more tension headaches in their lifetime. They're so common.
Yeah.
And then the other 15% or so is migraines. And then cluster headaches are very rare. They may be 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 adult people.
What does that mean? Is it clustered in a specific part of the brain?
No, actually, cluster refers to the timing. They tend to occur in clusters. Like you will have them, for example, for a few weeks, then you will have span of time when you won't have them, then you'll have another cluster of them. Exactly, but they can be extremely disabling.
Oh, that sounds awful. Okay,
Yes.
so let's talk about causes.
Yes.
Because that's pretty wide-ranging as well. Why don't you start the list, and then I've got a long list here, and I'll fill any others in. But what do you think are the top causes?
So genetics, okay? Genetics, some people just predisposed to having migraines. It runs in their family. It's the way their brain physiology is, their brain chemistry is, and they are meant to have migraines at some point of their life. And unfortunately, some are actually predisposed to developing really debilitating chronic migraines, which are very difficult to treat and control.
You talk about a woman's cycle being a big trigger, right?
So those women that have migraines, majority will have a hormonal component, meaning they're more likely to get a migraine when their hormones peak during ovulation or when they drop in their actual menstrual flow.
All right, I'm going to go through some other things here on the list. Stress, dehydration, sleep disruption, skipping meals, too much caffeine, too much alcohol, bright lights, strong smells, screen time. I mean, that's just life. That's pretty much a day right there, isn't it? So is it tend to be all of those things for people? Is it tend to be one of those things? Can it be any of them? What do you see with your patients?
I think sleep is a key one. I think most folks who come to me with poorly controlled headaches of any type have usually some sort of sleep problem. Many of them have dealt with insomnia for years, and it just became a normal thing that they feel like it's just part of them.
Is that related to the headaches, or it's just part of their life?
Often it is.
Okay.
Because we are finding out more and more that the ultimate driver of migraine pain, cluster headache pain, is hypothalamus, which is...
She's pulling out the brain again for those of you listening. And if
it's an organ deep in the brain, right in the middle, right above your master hormonal gland called pituitary. It's right here. And then it also controls our circadian rhythms, right, which are our biological rhythms. And that's why also you notice the cluster headaches happen in clusters because of these rhythms. And even migraines have some clustering to them now that we research them more and more. They happen seasonally more.
Well, so you talk about seasonally. I know weather changes. Someone I know was just in the ER this week for one and thought that maybe barometric pressure, it had been warm, and then within 24 hours it got really cold. That can be another big trigger, right?
That's a big trigger.
Okay. So at what point do I need to come to someone like you to get do I just diagnose myself and carry on, or at what point do I need to come and talk to a doctor about it? How do I know I'm at that place, and what good does a diagnosis really do?
Correct. So as I mentioned, up to 80% of population will have some type of headaches at some point, tension headaches especially. And so the key factor is to understand red flags of a headache and when to seek medical attention. That's number one.
What are some of the top red flags?
Of course. If you've suddenly developed a headache you've never had before and it's severe.
The worst one you've ever had.
The worst one, and it comes on quickly.
Okay.
That is very worrisome.
What if it goes away fast? You don't care. If it came on quick, that's when we need to...
If it was just one little stab of a pain, you never have it again, and you're feeling fine for the next week, you probably don't need to make a huge deal of it. But if it's a pain that stays, it's not going away, and it's, especially if it's accompanied by other symptoms like changes in vision, nausea, vomiting, or God forbid, stroke symptoms, which would be sudden onset of loss of function.
Okay.
That actually is a 911 call.
Yeah. And if you're just at that point where it's impacting half of your month, 15 days a month, something like that, is that considered a red flag too?
Absolutely. And I hope most folks will not wait until then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many do. And so it's important to be honest with yourself of when you feel that you're starting to, the headaches controlling your life rather than you're controlling the headaches. Because it's very easy, unfortunately, to lose control. And the longer you live that way, the harder it will be to treat the headaches.
How much, like, what do you do when, is it easy to diagnose it? Are there very simple tests? Is it mostly anecdotal and just talking with someone? It seems, is that part of why this is such a tricky area for people, that it's not like there's just a simple test or a simple scan? You can't scan their brain and just tell them what's going on?
So any symptom in the body, when a person presents to the doctor, starts with history taking.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes it's rather easy to diagnose certain headaches because a person is overall very healthy, they have clean family history, they lead healthy lifestyle, they're up to date on their preventative health. But sometimes if a person hasn't been to a doctor for a while, or if they have really significant family history of brain aneurysms or some other serious medical conditions, you can just let it go. So it's important to, first of all, I tell all my patients, you get oil changes for your cars, right? You go, because the engine can stop running if you don't, or some unpredictable problem will come up. Well, this is your body. It's so much more complex than a car.
Yeah.
You better get oil changes on your body. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you go to a primary care doctor on regular basis, you get regular checkups, you are up to date on your preventative health, you are leading healthy lifestyle, you stay physically active, you try to sleep regular hours, you try to eat healthy, you stay hydrated, you try not to smoke, try not to do bad things for yourself. Then if a problem like a headache comes up and you come to your doctor who knows you well, they may have much easier time diagnosing you than if you haven't been seen for years, you've never done preventative health. Then doctors start worrying. Well, what else do I not know about your health that we need to make sure? Because literally, it could be high blood pressure that's causing your headaches. Or high blood sugar could be causing your headaches, for example.
So you have to be a bit of a detective to try and figure it out.
Absolutely.
They impact women more than men. I think the data shows women are 2 to 3 times more likely to experience them than men. How come?
In general, yes. Hormones, especially migraines. Migraines are 3 times more likely in women than in men. Mm. Yes. And so the thought is that the estrogen cycle is the big trigger. Yes.
So what should women be tracking with their cycles? Like, is it worse at the beginning or the end? And, should you expect something versus, what should we know about that?
Well, just like most of us understand that there is a syndrome called premenstrual syndrome, PMS, when we're more likely to be achy and foggy and moody, and that's the time when you can get most of your headaches and migraines, okay? And so when your body is more vulnerable during those times, that's the time to take better care of yourself. Make yourself happy, make your brain more happy by giving it what it needs, which is regular sleep, regular meals, plenty of hydration. If you have tons of things on your schedule that you have to do, maybe during that time of the month, you may want to be more mindful of that. But again, some of us cannot control everything, right?
It's hard.
And that is what you have to be honest with yourself about. If you start literally scheduling your life around your headaches or any other medical condition, you probably need to see a doctor to figure out how you can live better and happier with whatever the medical issue is, so that you don't have to schedule your whole life around it.
What do you see as the most common triggers? You've talked about sleep, you've talked about the menstrual cycle can be one. Do some of those others jump out at you, or do you see them more, especially with female patients, than with others? I'm wondering about dehydration as one of them.
Dehydration is very common. Caffeine is very common. And I speak about it in my other podcasts that I've had. Mm-hmm. I ask every patient who comes to me about caffeine because most Americans drink coffee. Most Americans do. And caffeine is in so many different sources these days. It's in desserts, it's in tea, it's in just soft drinks.
It's also often an anecdote that people will take, like you'll get a headache in the morning until you get your caffeine sometimes, if it's something, that. So I can see that, caffeine is something that people start, but then, taking, just looking at the size of the cup, or if you're drinking an energy drink, like the amounts that we're taking right now, that could be contributing to it a lot.
Absolutely, because caffeine can help with the actual migraine, but then caffeine withdrawal can cause a headache, unfortunately.
And too much, I guess.
And too much caffeine can cause a headache.
So what's the magic amount? Just 1 cup?
I tell my patients, first of all, if you're not a regular caffeine drinker, stick to 2 cups or less per day. And I'm talking cups like that, about 12 ounces.
8 to 12 ounces?
Yes,
okay,
exactly. Because this one has about 100 milligrams of caffeine.
For our listeners, we're holding up a really nice VSI
Very
cup.
nice.
And yes, this is probably 12 ounces.
Yeah, and it has about 100 milligrams of caffeine in it, usually.
Okay.
Like if you drink a coffee, just
plain coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And so...
What about sugar? Does that make it worse?
So sugar fluctuations can result in headaches also. Okay. So, and sugar substitutes can trigger headaches and migraines in some folks. So in general, it's best to minimize sugar. And if you are going to drink any kind of caffeinated beverage or eat anything with caffeine, stick to the same amount, same time, every day. And I would say 200 milligrams is a nice middle, although FDA states that up to 400 milligrams for an adult is okay.
But if you tend to headaches, do you recommend sticking on the lower end?
I would stick on the lower end, and especially in the older folks, our metabolism slows in terms of breaking down the caffeine, and it can really affect our physiology, the way we feel. It can disrupt our sleep. And I would stick to caffeine before noon if you are on regular schedule as far as your sleep, going to bed like 9, 10, 11 p.m. Stick to caffeine before 12 p.m. so that it can be metabolized in time for you to be able to fall asleep, but it also will prevent you from having interrupted sleep.
Okay, let's talk about the calendar. We're sitting here now between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Busy, joyful holiday season, Hanukkah, whatever it is you celebrate. There's a lot going on this time of year, a lot of fun. And it can be an incredibly stressful time for people. The data shows that headaches can actually increase this time of year. Why? What do you is it just, it's all those things, I guess, that you're saying, right? Stress, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, we're just amping it all up. Is that the reason?
That's right. So the nights are longer, the days are shorter. We tend to have higher levels of cortisol hormone in our brains during this time.
That's the stress hormone?
Yes.
Okay.
Which lowers our pain threshold, right? And so makes us more likely to have interrupted sleep, have more pain. And so, and also we eat more during the holidays. So cortisol also, along with that and us eating more, causes us to gain weight, our metabolism slows, our sugar levels go up, our blood pressure goes up. So it's like a vicious cycle, right? So you have to break it somewhere, right? So I say, look for sunny days, but you have to make them sometimes, right? You have to create that sunny day for yourself.
Well, this seems so hard because a lot of the stuff we're talking about is the fun stuff in life, right? Like,
right.
Oh, getting sleep or getting a great cup of coffee or a holiday party, or like a lot of this stuff is what people think of as the fun things in life. And so the idea that those sort of extras could be like, it's complex that could be causing your pain. You don't want to, right? How do you hold on to or find the sunny days if some of those things, it's just about excess, I guess? Is that the idea? Or...
Honestly, I think the older I get, the more I actually understand that life and every season is a marathon, right? We have to pace ourselves through that marathon. We literally have to be like marathon runners and know that, okay, I've pushed myself a little hard. Now I have to give my body a chance to recover. And how good you are internally at doing it naturally versus actually having to schedule things in a way that will make you healthier during those seasons will basically determine how healthy you are in general and how happy your brain is.
Okay, you talked about the sunny days. Seasonally, is it harder? Are they worse in the winter, easier in the summer? Or if you live in a place that's cold versus hot, that's another factor too?
Of course, and it also depends on our lifestyle. Do we have children? Do we not? Are we single?
Saying children cause headaches?
Well, when
of course they do.
Well, when kids are on break, life is more intense for parents, right?
Yes, especially if you're juggling it with work and other things.
Yeah. So during the winter holidays, especially, it can be really tough.
Just everything coincides.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I guess let's talk about solutions. We've kind of talked about some things here and there, but let's get more specific. So step number 1, identify your headache. Is that the first step in trying to get some relief?
Step number 1, pay attention to your health overall. Pay attention to the way you feel every day.
How are you running the marathon?
Exactly. Pay attention. And get regular checkups, get your oil changes, okay? Pay attention and be kind to yourself and schedule time for yourself. When you have a calendar full of chores and none of those times are dedicated for you to pay attention to yourself, there is a problem. So if you don't do it without a calendar, you have to do it naturally, but schedule something for yourself, basically. Every week, you should have at least 2-3 days when you have at least half an hour to an hour just to yourself to do things that you need for your health, whether it's to go on a walk, exercise, calm your brain with yoga, go outside and just breathe fresh air. And sleep has to be regular also. So especially during the stressful times, that's a key. If you don't have any time to yourself, if you're not getting regular amounts of sleep, if you're not staying on top of your meals and hydration, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have some sort of health problem, but headaches are very common. And I tell my patients, your brain is the most sensitive organ in your body. And guess what's going to give you pain first? Your brain, your head. Exactly.
Okay, so assess everyday habits, do some stress management. At what point do you look at medication, and what's the newest, greatest stuff out there right now? Because there has been a lot of innovation in this front to help people, right?
Absolutely. So for any type of tension headache or even migraine headache, first class of medicines you try are over-the-counter non-steroidals. Tylenol, ibuprofen, naproxen, all of the ones out there. But of course, this is again, depends on a person. If you have certain conditions like ulcers or bleeding disorders, you may not be a good candidate for taking those medications. So if you're just a healthy person with no significant medical problems and you're on top of your health and you go to a doctor and you're safe to take those medications, go ahead. But it starts with the basics, just going and getting checked out regularly. Now, if those don't work, and the key with migraines, let me tell you, is as soon as they start, that's when you start treating them. You don't wait. The longer you're going to wait with migraine pain, you're going to be in deep trouble. It's going to be harder and harder because all of those inflammatory chemicals just release more and more and more, and they spread all over your brain, and they're hard to control. So you want to stop them in their path as soon as you start feeling that the headache migraine is coming on. So you take that medication with food so it doesn't irritate your stomach, lots of hydration, and you wait 30, 40 minutes. If the pain is coming down, you're feeling better, great. With any type of tension headache or migraine headache, usually it's best with rest or sleep. Usually
they say going to a dark room.
Going to dark room.
I had a roommate that was in college. That was her she would feel immediately better, but she had to go into a dark room.
Yes.
What about, so I'm on TikTok a lot, and there's tons of products there. They're talking about cold caps and all these different things. Do you like some of those things that are out there? And then talk about what you can do to prevent it, because that's a medication option too, right?
Of course. So ultimately, the most effective way to treat a migraine or a tension headache is to take the analgesic.
Okay.
It's going to be the most effective. Now, can you do other things that will help? Sure, but it may be not as quickly effective in general.
It might take longer. Okay.
Yes. So, yes, cold cap, scalp massage. You can take the pads of your fingertips and just kind of massage your scalp to try to get that blood away from your scalp, okay? Because what happens during migraine is your blood vessels dilate in the membranes of the brain, and they send these painful signals, and then the scalp blood vessels dilate, and so all these chemicals are around, all these inflammatory chemicals are around, and so what you're doing with this is you're sort of pulling them off of that area into your shoulders, neck, so they stop causing so much pain. Okay. And there are devices out there.
I was going to say, there's like something that like massages your head and stuff like that.
Yes,
Or
yes.
spas that do it now.
And that's basically the principle of those devices also. Often Cephaly device you place on the forehead, it sends electrical stimulation into your scalp. It's sort of supposed to do similar type of thing.
So those can work.
Those can work, but and in milder attacks, and for some patients that may be all they want to use, especially pregnant women, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want to take so many medications, so they can choose to do that. Or kids, right? Ice cap, like I said, lots of hydration. There are certain supplements that are very mild and safe and can effectively prevent migraines if you have them frequently.
And then there's a new class, well, maybe you said it's not that new, but there is a class of medications that will help with prevention too.
Absolutely. So we've had preventative medications for migraines for years, and they were recommended and still recommended for those folks who have difficult to treat migraines at any frequency or headache, migraine at least once a week. So if you are in that category, you technically qualify for some sort of preventative medication. And there are different types of preventatives, like I mentioned. Traditionally, they were in class of some other medications used for something else, like antidepressants or seizure medications or blood pressure medications. And we still use them. They're great.
But now there's something
now there are specific class of medications that work specifically on migraine pain, and though that class of medications works on CGRP, calcitonin gene-related peptide, which is a chemical that is associated with migraine pain. And these medications are very effective, and they also have very few side effects because they're so specific to migraine pain mechanism.
Do they make a difference for your patients?
And they're very they do make a big difference. They decrease frequency and intensity of migraines by at least 30 to 40%, and even more for some patients. And they're generally very safe. Unfortunately, pregnant women cannot use them. Mostly the ones that are used for prevention, the monoclonal antibodies. But there are some medications in that class that pregnant women actually can use safely, and there are pregnancy registries and things like that at this time showing that it's safe for pregnant women to use them.
Okay, so what's exciting you from treatment options in terms of what might be coming to help people?
So there is a new chemical called PACAP that is involved in migraine pain, and there are antibodies that are being developed to work against the receptors that are triggered by that chemical to cause migraine pain. So that is probably the latest. There are more devices coming out for migraine pain. So there are more and more medications that are specifically catered to migraine pain mechanisms now, in the last decade, and more to come, which is very exciting because ultimately we want to help patients as soon as possible and cause least amount of side effects.
So I want to end on some encouraging things for people, because I feel like if you have headaches, it can feel hopeless. And like we said, it feels like people don't understand, or maybe you're not sure what to do to make it better. So let's end it on a positive note. What is the most encouraging thing that you can say to patients out there, or that you do say when they come to see you?
The science of migraine has boomed in the last decade, and it continues to boom. And patients are much happier today when they seek help for their migraines. But sometimes it may require you seeing a specialist, because although your primary care physician may be excellent and may know some traditional medications for migraine,
there's a ton of stuff you're describing.
There is the field is booming so quickly that sometimes when you feel hopeless, all you have to do is come to a neurologist.
Talk to an expert. You just got to go talk to someone who knows the options.
Talk to a neurologist, yes. And please don't wait. Because if you wait, the cascade of pain will propagate itself and increase chance of you developing chronic pain. And the longer you go with that, the harder it is to sort of reset the brain. That's what I explain to my patient. We literally have to shut down your brain and reset it when you're dealing with chronic pain. And the longer you've lived with it, the harder it's going to be. Because it's a biological living
It's the most sensitive organ, you said. I'm learning. Okay,
yes.
So final takeaways for people: don't wait. Small adjustments to your lifestyle and assessments of honestly looking at your sleep, those things. Those sound like some of the big ones. And if someone is really struggling, don't do it. Just don't struggle alone. Is that the main lesson?
Be nice to yourself. And admit to yourself that you deserve better. You deserve to be happy, and you can be happy, but you need to give yourself a chance and seek help.
You don't have to live with headaches
do not have
in this
to
day
live.
and age.
You do not. You do not, thankfully.
There's a lot you can do.
A lot.
If you come to the expert.
That's right.
Thank you, Dr. Ackerman.
Of
Great to
course.
talk to you.
You too.